Shawl podcast. My name is Terry and I will be your host. Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're new here, welcome. If you are a returning viewer, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining me again. If you're new here, please consider going back, taking a look at some of the previous videos and seeing if it's something that you might be interested in. If you haven't already, do the YouTube thing, subscribe, like the videos, comment, all that sort of thing. I guess it helps the algorithm do something. Who knows? Anyway, a quick little introduction about myself. I am a knitter from the east coast of Canada in a province called Newfoundland. I have lived in central Alberta for quite some time, and I still consider Newfoundland my home. If you ever hear of anybody speaking of Newfoundland and they're from there, they will often call it home. Actually lived in Alberta quite a bit longer than I lived in Newfoundland, but Newfoundland is still home. You will notice that there are some Newfoundland terminology and some language that I use. If you want to find out what that's all about, again, previous videos will explain some of that, or you can Google it, or if you have a friend that's from Newfoundland, they might be able to help you out. But I won't be describing the segments any longer. I've done that for a couple of years, and I figure you guys are sick of hearing it, for those that keep returning, and for those that are from Newfoundland that already know what it means. Today's going to be a little bit different. My plan today was to talk a little bit about why I knit and why it's so important for me and critical for my mental health. Again, if you're new here, I am a cancer survivor, and the last 3+ years has been a bit of a heavy time in my life where I was diagnosed with, I won't tell the whole story, but I was diagnosed with cancer multiple times, and then there was a recurrence, multiple treatment plans, all kinds of side effects and really nasty stuff going on. I'm still in the throes of all of that. So, yeah, if you want to know more, I tell a lot more in previous videos. You can go back and have a look. You can even see my wonderful hairstyles that I've had in the past. This one, not much better. It's just growing and growing. Before I continue, I'm actually just going to see if I can fix that lighting, because it's shining pretty crappy there. So see if I can, if that's a little bit better. That's a little bit better. Sorry about that. Where was I? So cancer survivor, mental health, knitting, all that stuff for me kind of goes together. And this episode is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be too much different. I'm still going to follow the same pattern or what's the word? You'll notice this a lot. I don't come up with words very easily. I lose words often. Anyway, I'm just going to dive right in, and you guys can stick around if you feel like it. I apologize if it's all over the place, which often it is. We're going to start right off at the top where I talk about what I'm wearing. So today I'm wearing the Comfort Fade Cardi by Andrea Mowry. This was knit with a set from Polkadot Creek several years ago. It's various colors of gray. I'm not going to try to remember them. I know the white one is called Dove, and that's all I remember. The rest are probably some sort of like gray and silver and dark gray. I have no idea. But anyway, it was done in the tweed. I knit this cardigan. The Comfort Fade Cardi is actually meant to be the purl side out. And I much prefer knit side. I don't know. I don't know if it's my neurodivergence kicking in, but I just don't like the purl side of items. I don't mind garter stitch, but yeah, purl just doesn't do it for me, so I made it so that the knit side was out. I'm also wearing my autumnal socks by the BlueBrick, which I will try to show. There we go. Autumnal is a gradient colorway that was made by the BlueBrick. Again, these are a few years old. You've seen them before if you've been here a while. I do a typical, I don't know what's typical, I suppose, but a toe-up sock with an afterthought heel. Again, if you're looking for my sock recipe, I've probably said it a dozen times if I've said it once, so you can go back and look for that. I don't follow a pattern. I do sort of my own thing. I've mishmashed a bunch of my favorite things together. So like my favorite toe up cast on, my favorite cast off, my favorite heel, and I just do what works for me. Having said that, I think this particular pair of socks was in the time where I was trying to figure things out and which type of sock that I wanted to wear, and I think it only is 64 stitches. I currently do 72, but anyway, just something to think about. If you're an avid sock knitter, you kind of know probably what I'm talking about, where you find something that you like and you sort of stick to it. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about kind of my mental health and knitting together. And before I get into any of the things that I've knit, actually, you know what? I'll do the knitting first, because if you're here for the knitting, I can show that off and then put that aside. And if you want to stick around, you can stick around for the kind of the knitting related chat stuff, but not specific to a project. If that works for you guys, I hope it does. So I will start with, I kind of threw this all into a bag. I've had projects all over the house. I don't have them in specific project bags at the moment, which is very unlike me. All of my projects are in one bag. I have a little bit to share with works in progress, or in what I call on this episode or this podcast, What Are You At? So I'll show those first, and then we'll get into the one finished object that I have, which I don't currently have. I've gifted it already, so I'll put a photo up of that when I get there. But my point is this one big giant project bag filled with a bunch of things that I've been just sort of carrying along with me throughout. So this is the Ilene bag. I use these bags as project bags, as grocery bags. They carry my books or snacks for the kids, or they come into grocery stores or Dollarama to grab things. Like, I use these for everything. This particular one has been kind of earmarked as a knitting bag of late, so this one has a bunch of stuff in it, including books and snacks and all kinds of things. But this is the Ilene bag. Again, I've made, I think, 5 of these, so I will put the name of the pattern and the designer below, and then I'll link everything that I talk about this week in this in the description box, which is below this video. First, I'm going to haul out my cotton sock. God love your cotton socks is a very common term in Newfoundland. We are doing a knit along at the Yarn Merchant. Again, I talk about the Yarn Merchant a lot. I am participating in a knit along out there so that I can kind of be part of the community. I won't get into it too much because I'm going to talk a little bit about it in the mental health section that I'm going to talk about today. But we are knitting a sock together. It's the Easy Peasy sock by Stacey Trock. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. Last Thursday, everybody cast on a sock, and it was a lot of fun because there's a lot of new knitters there. I had noticed that I had cast on a sock on a US 5, and Lori, the shop owner, had cast on in a 5mm. So there was a little bit of fun with, is it US 5 or is it a 5mm? Lori saw 5mm somewhere on the internet. I saw somewhere on the internet it was a US 5. Anyway, it worked out really well in the end because I knit my initial sock as the shop sample on a 3.75mm needle, which is a US 5, and I'm going to knit the second sock on the 5mm needle, or the US, what's that, the US 8? Pardon my eyeballs, I can't see very well. Is that a US 8? Must be. Yeah, 5mm is a US 8. Don't take my word for it. I don't use US very often, but anyway, So we're actually going to use this sock as a conversation piece for gauge and why gauge is important, and reading the pattern ahead of time and why reading the pattern ahead of time is very important. So I will say the knit along that Lori is running is being done in chunks. She's got a 6 week knit along where everyone is joining and will be knitting a piece of the sock and then learning a little bit the next go around, and then going home and practicing and then coming back with your finished piece. So last week was just casting on 40 stitches and knitting a 1-inch cuff, which I came home and did because I didn't have my 5mm needles with me there. So I just used what I had and then pulled them out when I got home and redid it. So I've got a 1-inch cuff for a cotton sock on the Easy Peasy sock by Stacey Trock. This is being knit with Estelle Sudz. I don't know the colorway. I apologize. I don't have the band. I don't have the ball band, but it is, I guess, a variegated green and yellow kind of colorway. So if you can see that, works up nicely. Cotton socks I find to be really nice and comfy. They breathe really well, obviously being cotton, so your feet don't get too warm. But they don't have the same stretch as wool does. For anyone that knows a little bit about fiber, cotton has a tendency to stretch out and not bounce back very well. So if you're looking for cotton socks, these are quite nice, and worsted being a very large gauge of wool is nice to maybe make a sock for a house sock out of. I wouldn't be wearing them in a boot, or you'd have to buy like 2 sizes bigger to fit them in. And then knowing that they'll likely stretch out and don't really bounce back very well is a good thing to understand about cotton. I do find that when I wash my cotton socks, they bounce back a little bit more. They sort of shrink back to their original size. So if that's, obviously you wash your socks, but anyway, that's kind of just something to consider, something to know. So that is the Easy Peasy sock by Stacey Trock and in Estelle Sudz for the knit along happening at the Yarn Merchant. You'll hear me talk about the Yarn Merchant a lot. Again, if you're new here, the Yarn Merchant is a shop in Didsbury, which is sort of local to me. I live in central Alberta, and Didsbury is kind of my nearest yarn shop. I spend my spare time out there because I enjoy the company, and it's a nice place to go and sit and knit for a bit. So yeah, I'm participating in a sock knit along with that crew out there, and that's what this is for. The next, this is the little bag I'm keeping it in, just a little organza bag just to keep it all nice and tight. The next project I will talk about is the Linus Shawl. The Linus Shawl is, again, a free pattern on Ravelry. I am knitting this for my family doctor. Again, I'm pretty sure I'm safe in saying that she doesn't watch this podcast, so I'm okay to share that. This is the Linus Shawl, and it is made with, again, some Polkadot Creek. Polkadot Creek, I didn't mention earlier, is a yarn shop in Airdrie, Alberta, which is also somewhat local to me. I'm a little further north than that. I have an outrageous amount of stash of Polkadot Creek. Shelley makes some beautiful colors, has really cool ideas. She has some wonderful stock, so I was buying it by the truckloads. So I have a fair bit. I had this colorway, which I believe was a Valentine's colorway a few years back. Shelley was doing sock sets, so I believe it's a 100-gram ball with a 10-gram or maybe a 20-gram mini. I can't remember. Anyway, actually, this one was 2 10-gram minis, I think, because there was this sort of pinky purpley fuchsia color, and there was a red one as well. In this case, I'm just using this to make the Linus Shawl. The Linus Shawl is one of those ones, I don't know what you're supposed to call it. Asymmetrical? the word I kept thinking of was oblong, but that's not right. Asymmetrical. So it's an asymmetrical shawl that starts out with, I don't know, 2 or 3 stitches or something like that, and then grows outward, and then when you finish, it is sort of really, really long on the cast off edge, and it makes it an asymmetrical kind of triangle shape. So again, I apologize, I don't have the ball band, so I cannot tell you the colorways, but again, it was a colorway from a few years ago anyway, so what I will say is, if you are looking for Valentine's Day colorways, I know that Shelly is dyeing some right now, or has already got them already done, and you can find them on their website, which again, I will put right here and then link in the description box below. But this is a sort of a beautiful fuchsia colorway. I'm going to guarantee that the colors are not showing up true to color on the screen because of the lighting in here today is not awesome. And then this is a variegated and speckled pink, sort of pink purpley red colorway. I'm literally just splashing in some of this fuchsia every once in a while, and I'm putting in a stripe. So I've done that a couple of times. I have 100 grams of the variegated and speckle, and I have, it might just be speckle, I don't think it actually variegates. So I have 100 grams of that and 10 or 20 grams, this is 10 grams I believe, of the sort of fuchsia color. So I am just sort of throwing that in for a splash every once in a while. The reason I'm making this for my doctor is she's wonderful and she loves pink. I don't particularly enjoy pink, but she does, so I'm making that for her. Essentially, she has been a lifesaver, quite literally. The cancer story starts out with her saving my husband's life, which I don't tell much of that story on here because that's not my story to tell, that's his. But as I was going through cancer treatment, my husband ended up having a health crisis, I guess is the best word to describe it, himself. And so she literally saved his life. And she has since saved my life many times. She, yeah, she's been a staple in our household, and I owe her my life and my husband's. So I'm making her a shawl. I do little things for her every once in a while. A couple of years ago, I made her a pair of mitts. Yeah, she's just a wonderful human and a great physician. So I just want to make sure that she understands how much I appreciate her. Not just me, my husband, our family appreciates her. So that was the Linus shawl. Again, I'll have put that across the bottom and link it below. I will also say I have not been very good at doing project pages. So when I'm doing my links below, they're usually just the Ravelry, the pattern page. I do have a goal of updating my Ravelry project pages, so I will be doing that at some point. I'm not going to guarantee it, but when I do, I'll make sure to share that on here with you. The next work in progress, or the next item in What At, is another sock. Again, I think I shared this in a previous episode. I knit for the yarn merchant. I don't get anything out of it. I just knit for the love of knitting. But I knit samples for the yarn merchant at the shop. And so the sock yarn out there wasn't sort of being displayed, so Lori asked me if I would knit a couple of socks, and I've done just that. You saw a bamboo sock in the previous episode. This one is Arne and Carlos. I may have the ball band for this one, but I apologize. I'm absolutely terrible at that, so I may not have it, but this is the Arne and Carlos sock yarn that has come out in the last recent months. It shows up in a little peanut. It looks, you can't quite tell that it's stripes, and it's sort of like vaguely stripes. It doesn't stripe the way you kind of picture variegated self-striping yarn to stripe, because there's a bunch of variegated sections in there, so it's sort of, I mean, they are stripes, but it looks a little blended, in my opinion, because of the variegation that they have in between. So there's a solid color, then a little variegated section, and then a solid color. And so it looks really neat. I really enjoy it. It is, compared to the bamboo that I was just knitting, it is quite toothy. It's very, I don't want to say it's hard on the hand, because it's not. I knit with sock yarn all the time. But you can tell that there's wool. There's definitely some wool content. I believe it's, and again, I apologize, I believe it's a 75-25. I might be wrong. Where it's like 75% wool, 25% some sort of, like nylon, viscose, or something like that. Who knows? Let's see. 75% virgin wool, 25% polyamide. And this colorway is... I'm going to say 07028. 07028. I'm going to see if I can get close enough that I probably can't, because I've got the camera far away today. And my face is going to try to focus on my face. Anyway, Arne and Carlos, the sock yarn. Hopefully that worked. 07028 is this particular colorway, and like I said, 75% virgin wool, 25% polyamide. Working out really nicely. I took a break on this particular sock. I really enjoy knitting around and around because it doesn't take a ton of mental effort. But I took a break on that. And I really hope the next people... Sorry, I gotta take off my sweater. I'm having a moment. As per every episode, I'm having a flash. Sorry, back to where I was. I don't think that the people that are impacted by this next knit watch these episodes, so I think I'm safe to share this with you. If I do know anyone, if you're watching and you are due to have a baby in March, please turn off the camera or turn off YouTube and watch me after you receive my present. Anyway, otherwise, if they do watch, and it'll just be a spoiler, so that's fine. You've been warned. You know who you are. So this is a skein of Whiskey in a Teacup by Gage Dyeworks. Gage Dyeworks is located, again, like, we're so lucky, I think I've said this before, we're so lucky in Canada to have some unbelievable yarn dyers. Some of them really local to me. I live sort of I don't live in Calgary, but I live in the sort of Calgary area, and there are so many wonderful dyers that live and dye yarn around here. Gage Dyeworks is out in British Columbia. If you're not familiar with her work, just look it up. Again, I'll have all the links and whatever below, but Whiskey in a Teacup was something that I was coveting for a while, and I happened to be online a few years ago now at the perfect time. What I really wanted was a pair of socks made from Whiskey in a Teacup, but I ended up getting 2 balls of her sweater wool and 1 of the shawl. I won't explain that all here. She does a great job of explaining it on her website, but essentially the way she dyes the stripes coincide with a specific type of item. So this particular one is the sweater. The sweater ball is made for a baby sweater. So you start from the top down, any top down baby's pattern, and then you knit, obviously starting with the colors from the Whiskey in a Teacup color, and then you knit through the yoke of the sweater and down to the gray section. So again, I'm butchering how wonderful this is, but it's beautiful. If I can, I'm sure I can find one. I will put a photo of the finished cardigan that I am following the modifications for. I'll just dive right in. I am knitting this baby sweater. It's the Flax, I believe it's now called the Flax Sock. And I'm knitting size 1 to 2 years. And it's being knit with this Gauge Dyeworks Whiskey in a Teacup, the sweater ball. It will look, hopefully, when I'm done, it will look like this. And I'm going to put the photo here of what it is that I'm planning this to look like. The one in the photo that I'm showing you right now is, I believe, in either the 0 to 6 month or the 6 to 12 month size. I am hoping that I'm going to be able to squeeze a 1 to 2 year size out of it. I know the yardage in the ball doesn't say that it's going to be able to do that, but I'm thinking if I did something like a different cuff for the sleeves and a different border for, what's it called when it's the ribbing at the bottom of your sweater? The hem. Words, I'm telling you, sometimes these words escape me. If I just substitute a color, a different color for the cuffs of the sleeves and the hem of the sweater, I might be able to get away with it. And if not, then I'm just going to see if I can stretch this as far as I possibly can. What I didn't want to happen was for me to knit the whole sweater and then have this little ball of gray yarn left over that I didn't know what to do with. So, like I said, I'm really pushing it. I'm going to try to get the 1 to 2 year size, and I might have to do a little bit of juggling when I get to, like, I'll knit a little bit of the body, I'll knit a little bit of the sleeves, I'll see what we got left over, see if I divide it up. So yeah, I'm going to see what I can do and do my very best to manage my yarn usage as much as I can. So I'm going to do that. This is, I've talked a lot about it and I haven't shown it to you yet, so let me do that. This is, again, the Flax Sock. The Flax Sock is a free pattern by Tin Can Knits. Again, if you haven't heard me talk about them before, I talk about Tin Can Knits a fair bit. I love their patterns. Their free patterns are absolutely wonderful. Their paid patterns are absolutely decadent. The app that they have is awesome. I enjoy it. I'm not using the app this particular time, and I'll explain why in a second. But if you haven't knit a Tin Can Knits pattern, go find one, knit one. They're lovely. They are really size inclusive. They're really well written. There's schematics, there's photos, there's all kind, just do yourself a favor and knit yourself a Tin Can Knits pattern because they are wonderful. So this is Flax Sock. Which is a sweater pattern. In the original pattern, it's a pullover, so it's like a jumper, like a sweater, pull over your head, put your arms in type sweater. But this particular, for anyone who's ever had a baby, you know that wrestling a child into something that pulls over their head is not easy. And getting it off when they've puked on it or dribbled on it or whatever, again, I don't want to be dealing with that. So this I found on the Gauge Dyeworks newsletter that I refer to, or that I receive, had a link to a cardigan version that somebody had modified. So again, I will link all that below if you want to find that, if you want to look for this specific thing. But it basically, you take the flax light and you don't knit it in the round. So you add a couple of extra stitches, and instead of knitting it in the round from top down, you just knit back and forth and then make a cardigan, do the button band. The button band is knit on at the same time, and then you do your buttonholes every so many inches. So that's what I'm doing here. This is the first, I can't really quite tell if you can see the colorway again because I've moved my camera today, so I'm going to see if you can see it here. It's a very muted rainbow. So it starts out with this sort of mauve, darker pink, light pink, and now we're into this gold and yellow color. Whatever I'm doing, talking about it, showing it, does not do it justice. I absolutely love this, and I'm so glad that I finally get to use it on somebody that is a deserving recipient. So this is it caked in a ball. I wound it up myself with my hands because I was too lazy to come downstairs, quite honestly, and set up my Swift and ball winder. So I sort of did that little gum, what are they called? The whopper, the gum ball. Those of you that know what I'm talking about are yelling at the screen right now. All I can think of is the Magic 8 Ball. It is not a Magic 8 Ball, but I wound it into a ball, and then I changed direction when the color changes happen, so that each color change is sort of its own section. It was really cute in a ball. I think I took a photo of it, so I'll post that up here as well. All right, in summary, Flax Sock, made with a cardigan modification out of Gauge Dyeworks Whiskey in a Teacup sweater, which is not an adult sweater. It is a baby sweater. This one I'm going to squeeze out a 1 to 2 year size. And I would have put all the photos and whatever up. Moving on. Oh, that's it for the works in progress. So what are you at is the segment where we talk about that. The next segment is where I talk about what I've finished. That's Yes Buy. So Yes Buy, I've got one item. And I don't even have it. I don't have it in my hands because it was a birthday present for Lori, who is the owner of the Yarn Merchant. She is a great friend, definitely knitworthy, and it was her birthday last week. So I hemmed and hawed, and I wondered what I was going to make for her. And she, for my birthday, she gave me this gorgeous hand spun, which I'm pretty sure I've shown on here. If I haven't, just give me a second. I'm like 99% sure I've shown it on here, but in case I haven't, that is the hand spun that she gave me. Lori and I are kindred spirits when it comes to colors. We're definitely the autumn type colors, so rusty oranges, sage green, mustard yellow, that kind of thing. So these are definitely my colors. I don't know what I'm going to make with it yet. Haven't decided, but it is hand spun by Lori, and it is absolutely wonderful. So excuse me, it's a little bit precious, so I'm going to hold on to it for a little while before I decide what I'm going to make with it. But having said that, that's what she gave me for my birthday, and I'm sitting here thinking, well, I have to make her something equally as cool. I don't have anything equally as cool because I don't hand spin yarn. I don't intend to learn how to spin. It's just not in my wheelhouse. That's something that you will get here if you're new here. You'll get these little quips and jokes and things that I don't realize are funny until after I've said them. Anyway, spinning's not really in my repertoire. I don't really intend on learning how to spin. I don't know why. It just doesn't call to me. So I can't spin her something. I don't know. So anyway, I spent quite a bit of time debating over what it was that I was going to make for her. And I finally landed on a DK weight shawl made with autumnal, which is the socks that I'm wearing right now, but it was in a DK weight. I don't believe I have a photo of it in skein format, but I will have the blocking photos. So I will insert those so that you can see what I'm talking about as I'm speaking. We'll talk about the beauty of blocking in just a minute. But the skein of DK autumnal from the BlueBrick, again, I've had it in my stash for a while with the intent of making it for somebody, making a shawl for somebody that deserves it. Again, it was back in the day when you couldn't get your hands on this yarn, so I grabbed as much as I could at the time. And like you've seen my socks, so I made a pair of socks out of the sock yarn that I bought. There, I have a couple of skeins of DK weight. So I made a shawl for Lori. Now, for the life of me, I don't recall the designer, but I will, again, put it below, and then I'll put it right here, and then I'll link it below. I believe the name of the shawl is May I Borrow This, Please? Actually, hold on. It's on my phone. I'm pretty sure it's May I Borrow This. Anyway, while I'm looking for that, the shawl it's quite, I'm not huge into like big lacy, really textured shawls, but this one was just perfect. The May I Borrow This is, May I Borrow This Please is by Lorianne P. Waitman. Again, a free pattern on Ravelry. I found it, I was looking for a specific type of shawl, something that was relatively easy, but not just like your typical just straight knitting kind of thing. I wanted something with a little bit of texture, but not too much. Something that would be good for a gradient, but not, massive, because I only had one skein of DK, so that's kind of how I searched for my patterns on Ravelry, and found this absolutely beautiful shawl, and shawl pattern. made it. I made it in 3 days because I was panicking that I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't going to get it done in time. And I'm really glad that I actually did get it done, because when I finally gave it to Lori on the night of her birthday party, it was still a little bit damp because I just finished it that morning. I blocked it, spun out as much water as I could, and then blocked it because it really needed to be blocked. Again, if I haven't already, I would have put up these photos of the pre-block and the post-block. It needed to be blocked. You can't tell in the photos, but the pre-blocking photo, the shawl is sort of twisted and turned, and there's one section of lace where there's some yarn overs. Those are all sort of small. I don't even know if you can tell that there's yarn overs in there. And then the photo where the blocking has been completed, there's a stockinette section that's actually quite flat. The yarn overs are opened up. The shawl in the photo is, you can't tell this, but twice as large as it was initially, so it makes a big, big difference, the importance of blocking. I haven't talked about that in a while. If you don't block your items, please go watch some YouTube videos, learn how to do it. Do it on your acrylic items as well. It really makes a difference. I used to be the type that was like, whatever, I'm just going to wear it. It's not going to, no, it really does make a huge difference, so block your items. If you don't know what blocking is, I'm not going to get into it here. Like I said, YouTube is an unbelievable resource. Please go ahead and utilize that. Look for blocking your knits, blocking your crochet items, and the internet will provide. You'll be able to find some stuff on there, and there's all different types of blocking videos, different types of, ways to block things, wet block, steam block, all that sort of thing. Go ahead and have a look, but please block your items. That's the message from today. So that's it for the knitting. If you have stuck around this long, thank you so much for joining me. If you do want to stick around for the rest of the conversation, I wanted to talk about knitting and my health specifically, but you might relate. If you are a knitter, there's a reason you stick with it. It is, for those of us that really enjoy knitting, there's something to it, and I wanted to talk a little bit about what that was and why I feel so strongly about knitting. So, after my last episode, I talked a little bit about the things that I was doing, like knitting samples, for example, at the shop for Lori. I do actually get something out of it. Once I knit the sample, once Lori's done with it, she gives me the sample back, but I don't earn a wage. I don't have any deadlines or timelines or expectations. I offer up my services for example, I said I wanted to knit a ranunculus in the last episode. I do want to knit a ranunculus. I don't know that I want to own a ranunculus. And I don't just want to knit it and gift it to somebody. I want to give back to the community that helps and has helped me throughout my entire life, but more specifically through the last 3.5 years through this cancer journey. So I wanted to kind of touch on a few of those things, why I do that stuff, how I do it, sort of what works for me and what doesn't, and some of the things that I've learned along the way. The first thing that I will touch on is when you are dealing with, again, I said I wasn't going to get into too much detail, but the short version is over the last 3.5 years, I've been diagnosed with 2 separate types of cancer with 1 recurrence. We're currently watching other body parts in my body because of some nodules that they found that have shown to not, they've been benign. But yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with that, and then all of the sort of side effects that go along with it. So the first thing I wanted to mention was when you're in a situation like I am, where you're taking care of your health as your number 1 priority, it becomes your full-time job. It's something that has been on my mind for a little while, because when I was diagnosed, it was a Thursday, September 16th. I was actually not diagnosed until the Friday morning. If we're splitting hairs, it wasn't until actually the Monday morning the following week when they did the biopsy. But anyway, I went into the hospital and I called my boss and I said, I'll see you tomorrow. Like I'm headed into the emergency room, but I'll see you tomorrow. You don't really prepare for the effect that it's going to have on your life. I quite honestly thought I was going to go into the hospital, I would come home, I might be tired, but I'd be up and I'd be going to work on the Friday. And that was 2022. It's now January 2026. And I had a conversation with my family doctor a little while back. I've had this conversation with my oncology team as well about returning to work and when do you feel ready and when will I be ready to do that? And the feedback I receive is unanimous, and that is right now you need to focus on your health. And there are appointments that you have to make, and there are things that you have to do to take care of yourself. And working is not something that you can put on top of that. So, for example, today is Wednesday. I had a doctor's appointment in the city, it was about an hour and 20 minutes away. I had an ultrasound yesterday, and at the ultrasound, they couldn't get one of the pictures, so I had to go back today. So of this week, I've got three appointments already. I think I have another one next week. I have 2 or 3 appointments at minimum every single week. Most of them are at least an hour drive away. The thing that I never really considered was how much time it takes to do those things. So it takes me time to prepare. It takes me time to drive there. It takes time to when you get there, the doctors are running behind, or when you get there, they ask if you can stay a little bit longer because they need to take a sample or you need to do this. And that was not really in the plan initially. And literally this morning, as I was driving to the ultrasound that I had on my kidneys and my bladder, because again, all the secondary stuff, I got a phone call from the physiatry team at the Arthur Child Center, the cancer center in Calgary, that I have a follow-up with a physiatrist because of the secondary things. I'm dealing with fatigue and arthritis, and the number of people that look at my file on any given day is outrageous. So considering all of that, I just wanted to first start out with the things that I do in my spare time. When I said that last week, I thought to myself, I felt a little bit foolish in saying the word spare time because I felt like a bit of a fraud. Like, I don't work per se. I don't work at my current job because I'm not well enough to. So how can I say that I have spare time? Because isn't all my time spare? And that is not at all the case. Again, if I'm speaking to you and you are in a similar situation, I guess my message to you is to give yourself some grace, because I was having a really hard time doing that. I was not giving myself any grace. So, having heard it multiple times, I think I finally came to the realization recently that my health right now is my full-time job. It is my job to show up to these appointments. It is my job to take the medications, to pick up the medications, to remember to get them refilled, which I have on my list of things to do. All of that encompasses my job right now. So in my spare time, I do things like knit and read, and that's where you come in, because doing a podcast is part of my spare time. It helps me feel like I have something to look forward to and something enjoyable, and I don't have to be here for you. It's spare time. I get to do this as something that is important to me and not part of my job, which is going to those appointments, which I gotta say I really did not want to do today after already being in the city yesterday. Okay, so that's point 1. It's going to take us a very long time to get through this if I take as long as I did to get through the first point. The second point I had, which kind of ties into the first, is that you can kind of get lost in the rush. So going from appointment to appointment to appointment, I've had to learn how to slow down and to take my time and take a breath. When I go into the city to go to these appointments, I find them extremely stressful. The drive, for one, depending on what time of day it is, I can get stuck in traffic. I'm not used to city traffic anymore. I live rurally. I don't have neighbors. I live on an acreage, and I chose a quiet life. Actually, just before I was diagnosed with cancer, it was about 6 months prior to that I moved out of the city. I chose that life for my own mental health. When you're rushing from appointment to appointment, and don't forget to take this pill, don't forget to, don't take that pill on that day, you only are allowed to take that one on the days that you're not taking this one. Don't forget to pick up your prescriptions, Like, it's a constant, steady flow of things that you need to remember to do, and you need to remember to do them in certain times. For example, one of the drugs I'm on for one of the secondary issues I'm having is arthritis, and I take methotrexate. Methotrexate can make you very tired. It can make you feel very unwell. So I take it on a Friday afternoon or evening, so that I can have the weekend to kind of chill with my kids and recover if I'm having a terrible time of it, as opposed to, say, taking it on a Monday morning, making myself tired, and then I've got to drive into the city and have a CT scan or an ultrasound, or go see my urologist or the whoever it might be. So getting lost in the rush is something that I have had to learn to sort of slow down and take a minute and plan a little bit better. The other thing that I have found, which I wasn't really going to talk about at length, was I found ways to set goals for myself as well as to remember to do things. So calendar reminders or little things like that work for me. Again, if I'm speaking to you and this is familiar to you, go ahead and reach out, and I can share with you some of the items that I found or some apps that I use that help me. When you are initially diagnosed, and when you sort of start the process of taking care of your health, and I'm saying when you're diagnosed, I don't mean with cancer, I mean when you're dealing with something that is, maybe you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder, maybe one of your children has an issue that, maybe in my case, my son has ADHD, that takes some focus away from things. I'm not specifically just speaking about cases like mine. I'm just using it from my example, but this probably applies to many different types of situations. But I found that my productivity went down the tubes. So doing things like, for example, going to work, getting to work, staying in touch with friends, staying in touch with family, getting groceries, meal prep, all of the things that kind of come along with just being an adult, getting laundry done, taking care of my house, taking care of myself. That was something that I found really, really challenging for many reasons, but physically was the number one reason. If I was getting in the shower and I was washing my hair, that's what I was doing that day. I wasn't washing my hair and my body because I didn't have the strength to do that. So I would get somebody else to help me, or I would, have a shower and wash my hair one day, and then I would wash my body the next day, or I would have a second shower later in the day if I had a surge of energy. When it comes to knitting, my productivity with knitting just absolutely went down the tubes. So I believe I was podcasting. I think I started the podcast after already having been diagnosed and going through treatment. I can't remember. I'll have to go back and look. But I remember very, very vividly being in the hospital in Calgary and thinking to myself, I'm going to have all this time to knit. I'm just going to be sitting in a hospital bed waiting for doctors to come and poke at me and take me to CT scans, or take me for a PET scan, or bring me down for chemo, or do this, radiation, whatever. And none of that happened. And for some, I know for some, it actually has been a bit of a fire, like it's lit a little bit of a fire under them, where they do get a lot of knitting done. For me, it wasn't that case. I felt myself, really tired, really drained mentally, and I just didn't have the capacity to do much knitting. So yeah, that sort of, my productivity went down the tubes, which then affects my mental health as well. The last point that I'll have, that I say sort of why this came up for me, was that it became, and probably is for many, a nasty cycle. So I'm feeling miserable physically, which therefore, now I'm feeling miserable mentally. I don't have the one or two things, in my case it was knitting and reading, the one or two things that really fill up my cup, I didn't have capacity to do anymore. So then I have another, then it ties back into the mental health thing. The one or two things that really jazzed me up and got me going and put a smile on my face, I couldn't even do those anymore. So it became a nasty cycle. I will say I made the choice to just be in the moment and live with it. So we say something to our kids all the time. I say, just feel the feelings. Feel it. Feel the joy if it's joy. Feel the sadness if it's sadness. If it's grief or anger, feel the feelings so that they have the opportunity to pass. If you push down your feeling of anger, it doesn't go away. It just turns into something else. So I felt the feelings that I was feeling at that time. The grief, the sorrow, the anger, the fear, enter any number of feelings at any time in that journey that I was feeling. I felt those feelings and I just lived with them and I focused on them. And when I felt like I had a little bit of knitting mojo, I gave it a little shot. So I would knit a handful of dishcloths, or I would pick up something. There's probably 15 whips just this side of the camera that you can't see. I picked up a vest. I talked about knitting a skirt. Talking about knitting. I started a jelly roll blanket. All of those things. I have none of them finished. They're all sitting right here. I don't know if I'll ever finish them. But they gave me a little bit of energy, a little bit of oomph to move forward at that time. And no, it's not really filling my cup right now, but I'm really enjoying being able to see my knitting on display so that other people can see, maybe I could knit a sock. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I would like to try this yarn. Maybe I will try a toe-up sock today, or I will make a ranunculus or whatever. We're going to finally join the club of ranunculus owners. Ranunculi? Anyway. So feeling the feelings was really critical for me, and then allowing in the joy and the other pieces of me that helped make me feel fulfilled. I allowed that when it worked for me. Knitting for me has some really, I have some really specific memories of knitting. My grandmother, when she was sick and dying, and I went home to Newfoundland to see her, I was knitting a pair of slippers with some terrible, terrible yarn. I'll never forget it. And I gave those to a friend. She saw me knitting those slippers and asked if I could knit her a pair. I knit her a pair, and 2 days later she had passed away, but she was buried in those slippers. So knitting has a very important and critical space in my world. Sorry, I went down a tangent there, and I'm not even really sure why. I think the point is I take it when it comes. So if I'm having some mojo and I'm really feeling it, great. Right now I'm really feeling helping out Lori to knit with things that I wouldn't normally get to knit with, because I don't want to buy all of the sock yarns, but I get to knit with them. I get to give them to her so that she can show them off in her shop, and then I get to help the community that really helps me. So I'm going to touch on these because, again, I've talked way too long about why knitting is important to me and what sort of how the crappy times have been. I basically went on the internet. I thought about some things for myself, and then I went on the internet and I looked at some of the items on the internet about what's important for other people and why knitting is such a wonderful hobby. So some of the mental health benefits: the sense of accomplishment when you finish something, or if you learn a new skill. So like I said, I don't need more socks, but it really fills my cup when I'm able to finish a sock and give it to Lori and she can put it in the shop and someone can see it. And then I see it on their socials. And you know what I mean? So the sense of accomplishment that I get and the dopamine hit that I get from seeing those things and knowing that I did that and I'm able to make something quite literally out of string or learn a new skill. I think I've talked about this before where in the new year, I generally do a New Year's resolution, but I basically say to myself, okay, I'm going to learn a new knitting skill this year. So this year I wanted to try out a couple of different heels. I wanted to, number one, do a German short row heel. So in the bamboo sock that I knit for Lori for the shop, I did a German short row heel. The hit, I don't know how else to describe it, like the joy that I got in knowing that I can do something that I've never done before just by learning, by watching somebody else do it, again, just feels really great, and it makes me feel like I can accomplish things rather than just drive to and from doctor's appointments. It's also a dopamine hit, this is point number 2, when I realize that I'm good at something. So when I go to the sock knit along class and someone asks me a question about how did you do that again, and I'm able to share some of my knowledge with them, it feels good. It feels good to know that I may not be an expert, but I know enough to be able to help, and that feels really good to know. Again, I've talked about this in the past, but especially when it comes to brain fog, I find that I feel stupid a lot of the time. I know I'm not. I know my brain is just doing what it does, and it, for the last 3.5 years, has been focused on other things, but I feel stupid when I can't think of the word him, or I can't think of what we're having for supper, even though my husband told me 6 times today that what we're having for supper is chicken and rice or whatever. Knowing that I can do things helps boost my confidence. I said I was going to do this quickly. Number 3, I find knitting very meditative. So when my brain is spinning and thinking about all the things and scared of what is coming next, was it a week ago? No, it was Friday. Friday I had a procedure done and I was scared. I was not looking forward to it. I was really scared about what was going to happen and what they were going to find, if they were going to find anything, what were the results. So when my brain does that racing, I find that I can just knit away on something simple, and I find that, like I said, it's meditative. Number 4 is it slows me down as well. So again, with the racing brain and the racing thoughts, coming back to the stitches, it's literally just one stitch at a time. So it's one by one by one by one, just keep going. I don't know if I shared this before on here, but I used to be a runner, and before I had children, I used to run quite long distances, and I loved running because it was literally just putting one foot in front of the other. Knitting for me now is the same. I can knit and literally just do one stitch at a time, one row at a time, one project at a time. Sorry about that. I have a maximum recording time that I already hit. So if I'm working on a color work chart and I have to pay attention, then it forces me to sit and think about the color work chart as opposed to what results are going to come out of this CT scan or what have you. Or vice versa, forces me not to think. So if I'm obsessing over something and I can just sit and, like I said, meditatively knit one stitch at a time and just force myself to not think. This one kind of ties into that feeling of accomplishment, but the problem solving, new patterns, if you make a mistake, all of that ties into my confidence. And again, maybe this relates to you, maybe not. But when I make something, for example, when I make, say, a colorwork chart, is a great idea, cables, if I knit a stuffy for my children, all of that, it requires me to sit and think and put my brain to work, which, again, is really, really great for me to be able to do that. It gets me off my phone, which I find is ironic now because that's where my notes all are. It fosters creativity. So what color am I going to make with this? Maybe I'll do something a little bit different. The Gauge Dyeworks Flax Sock sweater that I'm showing you, I'm doing it in a cardigan rather than how the pattern indicates. So it pushes me outside of my comfort zone. A lot of people really appreciate your knitting, or someone else's knitting if you're wearing it, and you'll hear people say, oh, that's beautiful, that's wonderful, where did you get that? Oh, you made that? Oh my goodness, that's amazing. Hearing positive feedback in a world where we don't hear a lot of positive things these days. I'm not going to get into a political conversation here. Please do not get into a political conversation below. I believe that the world needs a lot more positivity, and knitting for me, and for some others, is that. As opposed to the negativity that is elsewhere. I'm going to take a quote from The Last Homely House. Kate from The Last Homely House, if you're not familiar, is one of my very favorite video podcasts here on YouTube. Go ahead and check her out. She quilts, she sews, everything. She's just amazing. She sews, she knits, she spins. She now has a weaver, a rigid head of loom. So she's weaving as well now. Love her. Absolutely love her. She has a saying, get out of your head and into your hands. And that is, I think I've probably said this 3 different ways already today, but knitting really helps me, or I guess crafting really helps me get out of my head and get into my hands. And then at the end of it, you get something in return. Number 11, some of the positive things, community, friendships, kinship, and belonging. So belonging is important for the human race, not just for me and not just for somebody who's had cancer. But when I found the Yarn Merchant and when I found my community of people, I probably have mentioned this before, but I used to live in the city and I had a knit group there, and they were 10 of my best friends. And when I left the city and now diagnosed with cancer, I'm not able to drive as much. I can't drive into the city and go to knit night. I can't drive into the city and see them on a Friday morning when they all get together. Whereas when I lived in Calgary, it was way more doable. I also didn't have a cancer diagnosis at the time. But the Yarn Merchant is 10 minutes, 15 minutes away from my house. So that fills a void. And it's really, really important for me to have those friendships and those relationships with people that I can relate to, people of the same age group, people of the same, what's the word? Like, they like the same things I do. They do the same crafts I do. Okay, so you know it's been too long when your camera tells you you've been recording too long, and then you kill a brand new battery. I'm going to try to tidy this up as quickly as I can. I was saying that when I was at knit night one night in Didsbury, that one of the ladies was telling me that she is interested in a loom. She has a loom at home, and I was sharing with her that I recently investigated the possibility of purchasing a loom. So having that kinship, having that shared joy is important to me. Decreasing anxiety and depression, it combats social isolation. And then I just wrote here, the only thing I did for several years was go to hospital and doctor's appointments. So now that I can get up and go and do something other than that, it's funny because I get out, I sort of do my thing. I get up, I go in the truck, and then I just drive to the city to these doctor's appointments. Or to the hospital in Didsbury and go get blood work done, or go get this done or that done, or I end up in the ER because of an infection. It's nice to go somewhere that is not related to my medical situation. This one is, I didn't realize how important was to me, color therapy, or like color, I don't know. I love color. I don't particularly like certain colors. I'm not a big fan of like a bright yellow, but I love a mustard yellow. I'm not a big fan of pink, but I don't mind working with it because it's bright and lovely, and I have friends that love pink. So color therapy is another positive. I talked about this when you're challenging yourself. One of the things for me is my memory. So again, feeling stupid because I can't remember the word hem. When I'm working on a pattern following a pattern. For example, the shawl that I knit for Lori for her birthday, very simple, but it required a lot of me following along, doing tally marks. It was challenging me to do something not vanilla, and it forces me to work my memory. So that sometimes it feels good. Sometimes you can't remember the word him. I really find, I don't know if it's like some righteousness or something, not in like a negative way, but the ability to be able to pass down such a valuable skill to younger generations and teach others the things that I know, for the sake of the craft. I know a lot of knitters who get joy out of being able to, like we got another knitter, yay! It's like we're this team of people that are trying to preserve this craft. So yeah, that's important to me as well. The physical benefits, I have 3. 1, it keeps my hands busy. 2, it benefits my arthritis symptoms if I do it properly. So I will say that comes with a caveat. Sometimes I have to use my square needles. Sometimes I have to work on big projects. Sometimes it has to be small projects. I have to really be careful about what I do and when. And number 3, it makes me get out of bed because I'm motivated to work on it. For a long, long time, it was really challenging for me to feel like I had any purpose, I guess, because like I said, all I did was just get up and go to the hospital. Get up and go to the doctor, or to, get blood work done, or go for this exam, or go for that exam, go for this surgery, or whatever. And that was really disheartening and frustrating, and my kids noticed it. And when they started noticing it, that really hit home. So yeah, being able to get up and go to do something, or to be able to share my craft with somebody, or for example, even just sitting down and talking to in an empty room, talking to a camera that I'll eventually spend some time editing and putting it up on YouTube, it makes me feel like I've got something else to do in my life rather than go back to the doctor or do this test. So that's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today with the mental health thing. I apologize, this video is going to be quite a bit longer than most of my other videos. If you stuck it out, thank you so much for sticking it out with me. As always, I appreciate each and every one of you that comes to join me, and I hope that you continue to do so. If, like I said at the beginning, if you haven't already, please go ahead and subscribe, like this video, go back and watch other videos, comment down below if there's anything that you wanted to chat about, send me an email, all of my contact information is below. And yeah, if there's anything that you find that is a benefit for you, and like what knitting or crochet gives you, what fiber arts does for you, note it in the comments, and maybe there are other things that I maybe haven't talked about, or maybe that I've missed. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for joining, and we will see you next time. Until then, stay where to till I comes where you're at. Bye.